All right. Hello. Welcome back. It's been a minute since we've done a Turmoil video in the Turmoil series. This is one of my most comprehensive and most deep dive-ish videos on the channel. This is going to be one of the longest videos. I just know it. This series is about the drama and controversy surrounding NBA teams. Uh, Obviously, this one, if you read the title, if you saw the thumbnail, if you're looking at the pictures in front of you, it's about the Phoenix Suns and how they have failed Devin Booker. This video and this um, series is all about the missteps and the good and the bad, and most likely, if the video is in this series, it's gone bad, and they're in a really bad spot right now. And I just want to really dive into this. Devin Booker is one of my favorite players. I've been a fan since he was at Kentucky, and he has been let down by this franchise. And this franchise has been in a lot of turmoil for a lot of years, even dating back before Devin Booker, dating back to the Charles Barkley days. But we'll talk about that um, another time. This is more essentially about the last, I would say, 10 years, about Devin Booker and the Suns and the partnership they've had and the good and the bad and all that stuff. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment it down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. Again, this is going to be one of my longest videos. I'm recording this in one shot. So hopefully it goes well. Hopefully I don't stumble over my words too much. I apologize if I do in advance. I have a script. I have notes. I have all the stuff ready. I've been working on this for about a month and a half now, getting this all prepared. My last script, I believe, was around 6 to 4 pages, something like that. I think it was 5 to 6 pages. This one is 14 pages. So buckle up. It's gonna be a long one, and yeah, let's just jump right into it. I'm a little nervous. I'm sorry if you can hear my voice. This is a long one, and I'm gonna try to do my best here. I'm not gonna try to sound too robotic and too scripted, just reading off what I have in front of me. But at times, I will just be going through what I have written down and giving my opinion here and there. Obviously, this is all my own opinion, but when I say my opinion, I mean off the cuff opinion. So let's get into it, man. So again, this is Turmoil, and this video is the rising and setting suns. You get it? Rising and setting suns, and how the Phoenix Suns have failed Devin Booker. We are gonna get into some characters first, some big names. We're going to do this in such a way where I'm going to talk about some characters that are at the beginning of this, and then I'm going to talk about some characters again when we start getting through the actual timeline of the Phoenix Suns from 2014, 2015 to today, current day, 2025 off season when I'm recording this. So, first character, of course, has to be Devin Booker. Again, one of my favorite players, one of the guys I've been following for a little while, and he's the franchise legend who shocked everybody. He was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and went to the University of Kentucky. A one-year player. He only played 1 year. He was a bench player, and his highest scoring game was in 20 was a 19-point game. And I make that point because it's important later. He wasn't that highly touted of a guy. His highest scoring game was 19 again, 19 points. Um, the team as a whole was 38-1 in 2014-2015 season. Along with the team playing well, he was the SEC Sixth Man of the Year award winner. Um, he entered his name in the 2015 draft and was taken 13th by the Suns. He was never projected to be the player he is today, maybe a good bench player or starter, uh, starter level shooter, sharpshooter, akin to more like what would you say, Danny Green? That's at least what Bleacher Report um, had in his draft comparisons. Um, Other places had him more like Gordon Hayward, who Gordon Hayward, at the time in that sort of late 2000 teens era was a different player than a lot of people know Gordon Hayward as in the late to or the early to mid 2020s Now he's retired, but Gordon Hayward was that guy. He was an all-star level player. So some people had him compared to Gordon Hayward, all-star level player. Some people had him as Klay Thompson 2.0, and Klay Thompson was a great defender in his prime, was an all-time sniper. Um, and this was sort of the this is what Devin's going to be at his best. That's what people had him as when he got drafted and was coming into the draft um, at that point. But in Phoenix, he was so much more. Um, Notable people taken in front of him include D'Angelo Russell, um, Jaleel Okafor, Kristaps Porzingis, NBA champion, Willie Cauley-Stein, a teammate at Kentucky with um, Devin Booker, um, Frank Kaminsky, that's a funny one. Uh, Justice Winslow, Point Justice Winslow was a time to be alive. Miles Turner, on the Pacers this past season, went to the NBA Finals. So some names, if you know these names, some of these are funny, some of these are just like ah ha ha ha, like whatever. Um, After a rookie year of 13 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, his sophomore year is where his career and his life changed. On March 25th, 2017, he came into TD Garden, which is the home of the Celtics, for what he thought was just another game. Last game they had in Brooklyn, he scored 28 points, leading the team in scoring, but in a losing effort. Just another one of their losing seasons, but this game in Boston was different. He started the game with 10 points, ended the half with 19. Then in the second half, Then in the second half, it was all Devin Booker. He had 23 points in the third and 28 points in the fourth. He was a man possessed. He ended the second half with 51 and finally the game with a spectacular 70 points on 20 made shots, 40 taken, only 11 threes taken, made 4 of them. He couldn't even drink yet, and he already had a legendary game to his name. He is still the youngest NBA player to reach that milestone to this day, almost 10 years later. Um, if you want to look at the box score, I'm going to leave all my links down below for everything I reference in this video almost. But the box score is crazy if you want to look at it. It's really, really crazy. Um, After that, his star burned bright, making his first All Star team 2 years later. And we will get into that a little bit later as well. Why do I tell you all these things about Devin Booker? Well, this is Turmoil, and something has gone wrong in Devin Booker's time in Phoenix. I want to break it down. I want to break down the teams, Devin Booker, the good and the bad, all the way back from 2015 to today, the 25-25 offseason. So let's take a look back at the turmoil Devin Booker and Phoenix Suns fans have endured. Yeah. All right, our next major character, or characters, I should say, we have an owner. We have two governors slash owners. We'll talk about the first one here in a moment. One of the owners slash governors in Devin Booker's time in Phoenix, Robert Sarver. He was an okay owner, and the more I read into this guy, he was a worse person. He was an okay owner. He did not buy the Suns in the sense of being the sole owner. He led an investment group, Suns Legacy Partners, that purchased the Phoenix Suns in 2004 for a then record $400 million, $401 million, pardon me. In the almost 20 seasons, the team only made the playoffs 7 times. The best record with him as the owner was 62-20 in the regular season. We have some other major characters. Of course, we can't talk about the Phoenix Suns without the coaching carousel that they have endured and Devin Booker has endured. He has, I think, almost a record for being on the same team with an absorbent amount of coaches. We're going to get through some of them here in a little bit. I'll reference it when it's necessary. Um, but just some names that stick out to me here as I'm reading through it, as I've written it out or typed it out. We have Jeff Hornacek, we have Earl Watson, we have Igor Koskokov, we have Monty Williams, Frank Vogel, Mike Budenholzer. These are, names are all important. I'll get into more in depth um, when needed. But let's move on to some other players, some other major characters. One of the more major characters, I think, that doesn't get talked about a lot, and I think deserves a little bit more praise, is Tyson Chandler. He was a Phoenix Sun from 2015 to 2018. He was the vet. He was the backbone of this team. The Phoenix Suns had brought Tyson in 2011 on a 4-year, $52 million deal. Um, Tyson has experience as an NBA champion with the Dallas Mavericks in years previous. He was brought to the team to be the adult in the room for a team with no direction. He was in his early 30s. That same offseason, the Suns had traded and let go of notable figures in favor of a guy like Tyson Chandler, who plays the center spot. They let go of fan favorites in Goran Dragic, Gerald Green, Isaiah Thomas, and they needed someone like Tyson. They also had another center on the roster, and they brought Tyson in to help him, Alex Len, to develop him. Otherwise, pardon me for the pause there. Otherwise, they got rid of those other players in Dragic, Green, and Isaiah Thomas because they play the guard spots. They were making room for their younger guys in Devin Booker, who plays the shooting guard spot. TJ Warren at the time was a recent draft pick of theirs who plays like more a forward spot, but still needed the ball in his hand, was a creator. Booker was in his rookie year, and TJ Warren was in his second year. Even though Tyson would only spend 3.5 seasons with the team, he was what they needed in the locker room. He was one of Devin Booker's favorite teammates to this day, and Devin credits Chandler with putting him on the right path and showing him what it took to be a leader. His numbers were just okay. He averaged 7 points, 9 rebounds, on 4 shots a game. Nothing, nothing insane, nothing crazy. Um, I will say wasn't watching basketball when Tyson Chandler was at the peak of his powers, but he always seemed like an interesting character to me, an interesting guy, a professional, um, sort of like that stern uncle, I guess you could say. Um, I think he was needed, and I don't think he gets talked about enough when you talk about the trajectory of the Suns and where they were at that time, and then where they were going to go. And we'll get there in a second. Um, he was needed. He was needed. He was needed. I don't want that to be understated. Um, the next guy, Tyson Chandler was the first vet, pardon me, for this team in the Devin Booker era. And next, we're going to talk about the first draft pick, sort of the Devin Booker era that they were trying to pair with him when they were really trying to build up this team and start to get some real momentum going. We're going to talk about Josh Jackson. Um, the first draft pick, and they were trying to save face. They were trying to really build something, and you gotta give them credit for trying to build something. Um, Josh Jackson was a Phoenix Sun from 2017 to 2019. He was the Swiss Army knife that fell apart. And I just want to say, before we get into this part, I was a Josh Jackson believer at the time during this 2017 draft process. I thought he was a supreme defender, was going to continue to be a supreme defender throughout his NBA career, and his offense would come along, um, because he'd have the chance for his offense to come along. The Phoenix Suns weren't in win now mode by any stretch of the imagination during this time. They were, in fact, just trying to find something, trying to find a foothold. They also had other draft picks in draft packs previous to Devin, and then obviously after. This is one after Josh Jackson. Um, in his time in college at Kansas, where Josh Jackson went, his stats were okay: 16 points a game, 1 block a game, almost 2 steals, 3 assists, 7 rebounds. A good stat line for a 6'8" wing. He was also NCAA All Region 2016 2017 All Big 12, Big 12 All Freshman, 2016 2017 Big 12 Roy The team was also pretty good when it came to draft night in 2017. He was taken fourth overall, heading to Phoenix. He was thought of to be at best, keyword at best, a Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, and at worst, an Andre Iguodala, who they're all very high level, high IQ players. Um, Looking back, and some of these names that popped out at me when I was looking back at this draft class blew my mind because this is sort of, at least to me, it's sort of a lost draft class. You have some really, really amazing names here, and you have some other names where you're like, huh, okay. Looking back, um, some players in this draft class included De'Aaron Fox, Laurie Markkinen, Dennis Smith Jr., Malik Monk, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, John Collins, Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, Kyle Kuzma, Derek White, Josh Hart. Some of those players were not better than him in college and deserved to go ahead of him. Some of them were worse than him and they got better in the league. But it's just interesting to look back. I think right here, I at least see, let me see, how many All Stars are here? We have one, two, three, four, five, five All Stars. We have one, two, two NBA champions, I believe. Yeah, it was crazy. This is a crazy draft class. This is sort of a lost draft class to me and to a lot of people. Um, However, Josh was always behind the eight ball. A number of factors could have been at play. An inconsistent role. He was never really nurtured. The coaching changes, like I alluded to previously. But the most obvious and the one thing he could control, and the couple things he could control, is he couldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot. His handle never really developed or was steady. Um, in his time in Phoenix, when he was a Sun, he averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 29% from three, abysmal, 41% from field goal, okay. His turnovers were bad, 2 turnovers a game. His personal fouls, two. They were down from his college career where he averaged 3 personal fouls a game, but still not great. All right, moving on here. We have some more recent guys, some guys in the recent mind of a lot of people. Um, Heading into 2018, the 2018 draft class, um, and the new GM for the Phoenix Suns at the time, James Jones, first draft. Um, we have two really big names here, and then we have somebody else who came along via trade, but we'll talk about that when we get there. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here because sometimes I talk myself in circles. We have DeAndre Ayton, which was at the time the obvious pick. And then in the same draft class, we have Mikal Bridges, the glue guy, as I like to call him or call him at the time. Let's talk about DeAndre Ayton or Dominatin, as he has tattooed on his back. That's Dominayton, Dominatin. Get it? Yeah, I don't get it either. It's a play on domination. I know. I'm being funny. Um, as I said in the Josh Jackson part of this video, I just want to say again, I was a fan of DeAndre Ayton. I liked him at his 1 year in it at Arizona. He was a Wildcat. I should clarify, Arizona Wildcat. He showed everything I like in a big man personally. Versatility offensively, had a great bag of tricks when it came to the mid-range game, and his versatility on both ends. He was great at defense. What he was, let's say here, he was great in spots defensively, more as a rim patroller and a rim defender, not so much as a rim deterrent. People would still go at him in college, um, but I thought he could improve. At the time, his shot blocking alone was good enough. Phoenix took him with the number 1 pick they had that year in 2018. Again, I want to preface this with at the time, perhaps some of these players were better than him in college or wherever they played previously, but a lot of these players became better than him in the league. Um, he went before the likes of Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year, Shea Alexander, MVP, Michael Porter Jr., and Jalen Brunson. Some of those players did not have great college careers, but looking back, it's funny to see some of these players that were taken after him are in MVP conversations. Um, Also, some All Stars were taken after him, which is ironic. Um, in comparison to looking back on it, DeAndre Ayton hasn't done a lot of the things that those guys have done that were taken after him. Although his draft comparisons were Sean Kemp, Seattle Supersonics legend, and San Antonio Spurs legend, David Robinson. Um, you could say, in some sense, DeAndre Ayton lived up to the Sean Kemp comparisons, but he is still nowhere near David Robinson after DeAndre Ayton has spent 7 years in the league. Still not anywhere close to David Robinson. That's a crazy comparison looking back to it. In his time in Phoenix, he was a steady double double guy, mid teen scorer, and helped the team improve their record every year. Um, Year after year, even with a final appearance in 2020, 2021. A little spoiler there. The next guy I want to talk about is Mikal Bridges, the glue guy, as I like to call him. He was real. I like to think Mikal Bridges, who is I guess I do have the picture for you guys. Uh, Bottom right here, the guy smiling. That's DeAndre, and left is Mikal Bridges. Just for a reference. And if you don't know, Devin Booker's on the left. I think you should know who Devin Booker is. Um, if you're watching this video. Uh, Again, Mikal Bridges, the glue guy. Same draft class as DeAndre Ayton, but a very different college career. He came out of Villanova after 3 years and two national championships, one in 2016, one in 2018. He was looked at as to be the perfect guy for a rebuild. So perfect, the Suns traded for him on draft night to get him from Philadelphia in a bit of a heartbreaking moment because Mikal Bridges' mom worked for the Philadelphia 76ers at the time. The trade was essentially a swap for Zahir Smith, who only played 13 games in the NBA. Sadly, he's had some other stuff that we won't get into, but Zahir Smith is one of the sad NBA stories versus Mikal Bridges, who would go on to set the most games played without missing any, a record he still holds in the NBA today. Mikal's NBA comparisons were Otto Porter Jr., who has the nickname Automatic because he's automatic from three, retired recently. Robert Covington, who in the moment when these draft comparisons are being thrown out, I think was a very adept comparison. Robert Covington had Defensive Player of the Year potential. He wasn't Defensive Player of the Year conversations. He was a 3-and-D guy, one of the like original 3-and-D modern guys who was like, this guy's a point of attack defender. And I've said that a lot in my recent videos, but it is a more recent term where Robert Covington could guard the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, some fives, small ball fives, but Robert Covington was a do it all guy. So this was a very um, high level comparison looking back on it. Mikal, however, would surpass both these guys in their NBA careers, while also, like Da, helping the Suns improve defensively, especially Mikal flexing his defensive skill in his time in Phoenix. And the next guy I want to talk about here, um, somebody I also think that doesn't get talked about a lot when talking about the build up to this recent Phoenix Suns roster and the Phoenix Suns rosters that have come in the last 5 years. Kelly Oubre Jr., the the culture setter, um, Valley Boys. He was a Phoenix Sun from 2018 to 2019. A little bit about Kelly. He was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, but then traded to the Washington Wizards from Atlanta as a part of a three-team trade. This trade consisted of the likes of Jerry and Grant, not Jeremy Grant, Sherian Grant, G-E-R or Jerian Grant, common spelling. Um, this trade also sent Tim Hardaway Jr. to Atlanta, A bunch of draft picks were in this draft. This culminated in the beginning of his NBA career. Um, this culminated in the beginning of his NBA career, like his college career. A decent scorer, okay defender, sometimes a bad shooter, but wasn't looked at to be a star guy, just another guy. He gained some reputation as an annoying guy to have to guard you. Um, he also had some value as a swagger guy. He brought a different vibe to the John Wall, Bradley Beal era in Washington, but his time there was not long as he was shipped out to Phoenix in December of 2018, around the 17th, um, from Washington with Austin Rivers um, for Trevor Ariza. To me, personally, looking back, Kelly was a huge part in bringing the cool factor back to Phoenix. Him and everyone I mentioned previous to this, like Mikal, DeAndre, and Josh Jackson was on this team for a little bit. Devin Booker, obviously. Um, he brought the cool factor back, and it was so cool that in his first year, the team had a nickname. This culmination of guys. They were called the Valley Boys, Boyz, Valley Boys, a phrase coined by Kelly Oubre Jr. for the young, energetic core of the 2018-2019 Phoenix Suns, which included the likes of already said. Um, Kelly's voice and pseudo leadership um, of the team was greatly needed. Again, all the big time playing guys were kids compared to Kelly. Kelly was one of the adults in the room, and his numbers had taken a jump too, becoming a mid teen scorer, a better shooter, along with more responsibilities with his amount of shots, and he thrived when he was a Phoenix Sun. And with that, that really cements most of the characters that we will be talking about here. There's a few more that we'll get into, but I do want to start jumping into this timeline here, and then we'll circle back to some of these characters and how their time ended with the Suns, or if they are still on the Suns. Um, the first year I want to talk about here, that's more relevant to the last 5 or 6 years, is 2018 2019. Um, and I call this chapter, this time period in the timeline, a team with a future. Finally, the Suns did not make the 2019-2020 playoffs because of technicality. They made one of the weirdest seasons in NBA history, um, or they made the most of one of the weirdest seasons in NBA history, finishing their season with a 34-39 record in the Western Conference, which was not enough to secure a postseason appearance. They struggled in the beginning part of the season. That did not help the push later in the year. This when the season restarted because of the pause, because of the what happened in 2020. We won't say it here. Um, in the 8 return games, the team was fighting to get in. They shot 40% from three as a team, 54% from field goal, 28 or 84% from free throw. They had decent defensive numbers as a team. These are all team stats, by the way. 6 steals, 4 blocks. Um, this culminated in the final game versus the Dallas Mavericks, where the Suns would win convincingly. 27 points for Booker, 2015 for Cam Johnson, who was also a draft pick. Um, Before, I did not mention him because um, there are already so many characters in this video. Cam Johnson is sort of a footnote when it comes to this stuff. Um, Johnson also had 2 steals, 1 block, really good wing defender to complement Booker, Bridges with 14. Aiden also had 11 with 9 rebounds. And off the bench, it was a good game for Campaign, who gave them 15. Dario Sarge also had 16. All things considered, it was a great night for the team as a whole, and a good first year for Monty Williams, uh, their coach. They went into the offseason for the first time in a long time with some clear direction and with some clear direction and very positive moves in the right direction. Um, let's circle back here because now we're in the off season technically for the Suns. This off season was also very important for Devin Booker. Um, in 2019, 2020, he would go he would go on to win his first gold medal in the 2020 games. Um, for the first time for his career in Phoenix, he was averaging just 24 points a game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, along with the time period between since we last talked about Devin Booker till this time. He was a 4-time All Star, 2-time All NBA selections. Um, had some really good years in there, and yeah, this is a mouthful here. I apologize, but we're getting through it, man. We're getting through it. The next thing I want to talk about here throughout the course of this video is a very polarizing figure in Phoenix Suns history. Um, I want to talk about Chris Paul. But before we talk about Chris Paul, I just want to wrap up some of these other characters I've talked about here between this era of like 2018 to like 2020, 2021, around that ballpark. Um, Tyson Chandler was bought out in 2018 of November. He went to the Lakers in hope of getting another ring. He did not. He is now a player development coach with the Mavs. So Tyson Chandler's time in Phoenix did not end with a championship or any real tangible success, but he was noted in sort of my Hall of Fame of important characters in Phoenix Suns history. Um, Another sort of, I wouldn't say sad, but sort of predictable demise was for Josh Jackson, who was traded to the Grizzlies for Kyle Korver and Javon Carter. Kyle Korver never played for the Suns. Javon Carter did play for the Suns. This trade was in July of 2019. Josh bounced around from Detroit and Sacramento before being out of the league. Lastly, in 2023, he had some things said about him that weren't unsavory, some legal things. After being MIA for a bunch of years, he emerged back on social media on August of 2024, where it looks like he does not have basketball on his mind anymore. So those two characters, I believe, are done for the rest of the script and the story. So let us move on to Chris Paul. Let me introduce Chris Paul. If you don't know who Chris Paul is, I have some stuff for you to listen to about him and why he was so important for this Phoenix Suns team in the time that he got there. So, let me tell you about Chris Paul, or I guess it's Christopher Emmanuel Paul is his full name. Um, I would call this part in this section of uh, this sort of Chris Paul little bio thing, the vet, and the one who had never been to the finals. Chris Paul is a curious case of somebody who's always behind someone else from day one. From draft night, Utah took Illinois guard Jaron Williams before him. They were intertwined for many years, then Chris separated himself by being in MVP combos. With consistency and spectacular seasons, he outlasted Williams in the MVP talks through the late 2000s into the 2010s. As Williams' career took a nosedive, Chris had slayed his rival and taken his talents to the big market of LA in 2011. In the process of playing for the Clippers, it was his time to be the MVP. It was his time to take over the Western Conference. But yet again, he was behind someone else, and that someone else was unexpected, but not to Chris Paul. Steph Curry had gone to a few Chris Paul summer camps and was known to Paul in the middle of what was supposed to be the Chris Paul era. Steph and him had been battling in the Western Conference, which finally culminated in Steph's first MVP in 2014 2015, an award Chris still had not gotten up until that time. He was sixth in 2014 2015 MVP voting. After that it wasn't the Chris Paul era anymore. It was the Steph Curry and Warriors era. There would be a run in the West, um, of Steph and the Warriors beating the Clippers multiple times, running off 2 championships. Meanwhile, Chris Paul was at home in that time, and he was beat by the Warriors many times in his Clippers stint. In the summer of 2017, Chris Paul had had enough and got traded to Houston to join the soon to be 2017-2018 MVP James Harden. But the story was the same. The Warriors ruled supreme over the Rockets, too, beating them in the Western Conference Finals many times. At this point in 2019, in the offseason, the Rockets were tired of Chris and they sent him to OKC, who was going into a full rebuild. The Rockets got in return Russell Westbrook. It seemed like Chris was at the end of his time in the NBA. This Thunder team couldn't do anything, right? This leads me to the same year that we just talked about, where the Suns missed the postseason in 2019-2020, where Chris picked himself back up, and led this very young Thunder team to lots of no names, but one very important name, that was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP of this past season, a young guard full of potential who learned from Chris Paul every day. This was a strange year, like I had said, 2020. The whole league was in Disneyland playing basketball. Though the Thunder did not win it all, the Thunder would play the Rockets in the first round of these playoffs. The series would go 7 games, coming down to the wire. One of the best lineups in that era, in that year, was run by Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Dennis Schroeder. The three-guard lineup, where Chris wasn't the focus. He had used all of his knowledge from every stop he had been so far to make this lineup work. The team work. Chris Paul was still the leading scorer from this team. In those 7 games, he averaged 21 points, 5 assists, 7 rebounds, with other people being in double digits as well. That was enough for Chris to get picked up and for his career to be revived. He was traded um, to the Phoenix Suns, a team that wanted to take the next step and was in desperate need of some point guard help, a person who was willing to be in the spotlight again, but not the main focal point. Chris Paul, at the age of 35, was heading to Phoenix to play with what was at the time one of the best young cores in the league. But in 2020, there was a busy year. That offseason was a busy year for the Phoenix Suns. Um, you couldn't get Chris Paul to the Phoenix Suns without some sacrifices. And that sacrifice had to be Kelly Oubre Jr. He underwent knee surgery um, for a torn meniscus in March of 2020 and was not cleared to return for the remainder of the season we just talked about. After that, he was not long for Phoenix. However, he started his career as a journeyman as a part of his career. In November of 2016-2020, he was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder from Phoenix with Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, Jalen Lecque, if you remember that name, shout out, and a 2021 first round draft pick for Chris Paul and Abdul Nader, then flipped um, a couple months later to Golden State from Oklahoma. Then flipped in the same month of November 2020, the 22nd, to Golden State from Oklahoma. Kelly Oubre Jr. was for a first round draft pick, a second round draft pick, both in 2021, and a 2021 second round draft pick. And he has continued to be an impactful player for most of his career, in stops in Golden State, obviously, Charlotte, and now Philly, where Kelly Oubre Jr. still resides. Now we move on to the actual season of 2020 after the Chris Paul trade, or the 2020 offseason heading into the 2021 season. Um, Chris Paul arrives in Phoenix, um, and I'm going to make this a little spoilery. In 2021, or in the 2020-2021 season, they make the finals. Um, to spoil it here, this start of this era is one of the most successful teams the Suns have ever had in the Devin Booker era. But I want to look back on mostly the team and the year they had this year. We're also talking about the finals run they had and why it did not pan out like it should have. Notable players retained or brought in um, on these teams: Chris Paul, um, Torrey Craig, Jay Crowder were brought in this season, this offseason. Booker, Ayton, Bridges, Johnson, Campaign, which became a fan favorite player, were retained. This core is what got them a 51-21 record, the second best in the West, and many of those players being top 10 league leaders in statistical categories. That year, they played the champions from last year, the 2020 NBA champions, which consisted of LeBron James, Anthony Davis led Lakers. This Lakers team also had Kyle Kuzma, Kevin Caruso. Hold on, hold on. Not Kyle, Alex Caruso. Jeez, I'm that's a major mess up. This team consisted of, they also had Kyle Kuzma, Alex Caruso, Contavious Caldwell Pope, Mark Gasol, Talon Horn Tucker, Montrezl Harrell, one of the Moores twins, Dennis Schroeder, Andre Drummond, Wesley Matthews. This team, I forgot how crazy this team was after the Lakers had won this championship. They had so much abundance of talent and vets and like guys who know how to play basketball. Crazy. Just as a side note, they beat this team in the first round, beating them in 6 games. Davis missed Game 5 and only played part of Game 6. That's an important detail. That's why the Suns won, I think, essentially. Especially at the time, people were thinking the Suns only won this series because Anthony Davis didn't play 2 of the games. The Suns won this series. Moving on to the second round, um, I guess it would be semifinal. Yeah, it'd be the semifinals. They would play the MVP Nikola Jokic. This was his first year he won an MVP, and the Nuggets. They did not pose a challenge, missing a key part of their team. The Nuggets were they swept the Nuggets 4-0. Um, the Nuggets were missing Jamal Murray. This was the reason why Nikola Jokic won the MVP that year. If you do not remember, he was missing a lot of his key parts, so he had to put on an MVP performance, and he won the award that year. But the Suns did beat them 4-0, like I said. And the last challenge in the West was the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, however, which is a regular occurrence. But at the time, people were still believing in this Clippers team to really make some noise, and they did. They made it to the conference finals. This team also this Clippers team consisted of guys like Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, DeMarcus Cousins, Patrick Beverly, Rajon Rondo, Luke Kennard, and Yogi Ferrell. Those are some names there, man. Looking back just 5 years, or even was this 4 years ago, is crazy. Some of these teams and the names on these teams are crazy. Even though the Clippers put up a fight, especially in Game 2 in Phoenix, leading to one of Phoenix's most iconic moments in their history. This little section is one you guys might recall. This is very recent, 4 years ago. This moment was called the Valley Oop. The Valley OOOP, a play on alley oop, Valley Oop. You get it. I'm gonna run through this really quickly just to um, replay this moment for you guys if you want to check it out. Again, the details are down below. All my links for everything that I talk about in this video are going to be down there. But let me try to recap it for you really quick. It is 0.9 left on the clock. Jay Crowder is inbounding the ball down 1 point. So the Phoenix Suns need to win this game. This was a defining game in their house, I believe. Yeah, because it was in Phoenix. Down 1. Jay Crowder is inbounding the ball. So Ayton is not inbounding; he is on the floor. Ayton gets a good screen set by Devin Booker, by right by the corner, right by the top of the paint, by the nail. Ayton flies up to the rim, puts the ball in the bucket as the clock expires. The refs rule the shot as good, and the Clips would go on to lose the series in 6 games. Um, the Suns had now had won their first Western Conference Finals since the 1993 season, and their only Western Conference Finals appearance since 2010. Now they moved on to play the Bucks. Now this is where we take a little sidestep and we talk about these finals. These finals are really important, so I really want to set the stage for their opponent, which was the Bucks. The Bucks had just finished their regular season 46-26 and had gone through what some would have said a harder road to the finals. They had played the Heat, the Nets, the Hawks. The Nets series being one of the hardest, going 7 games. The Nets, a team with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, really being decided by one toe on the line by Kevin Durant in Game 7. This was a huge moment. You probably remember, it's so recent, but in Game 7, Giannis being injured. Well, let me backtrack here for a second. Um, I want to make it clear that Nets versus Bucks was the semis. They played the Heat in the first round. The Bucks had dispatched the Heat with relative ease after the Heat were beating them up a couple years previously. They finally got over that hump, and that's what led the Bucks to play the Nets, and Game 7 versus the Nets being decided by Kevin Durant's toe being on the line, the shot being ruled a 2 rather than a 3, and then the Bucks would go on to play the Hawks in a somewhat competitive series. Um, Giannis got injured in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Hawks, but made a heroic comeback to help bring the Bucks to the finals. This is a side note as well. Giannis said this year that the knee he injured in that playoff run versus the Hawks still isn't right and probably won't ever be right. So that injury, I'm not going to link it because it actually is kind of gruesome. He had a knee injury, which was kind of crazy. Um, but this isn't a Bucks video. This is a Suns video. Um, the NBA Finals would go 6 games, but would not go the way of the Suns. Both teams would win their home games. Phoenix having the advantage, winning more games in the regular season than the Bucks. But in Game 5, the Bucks burned the Suns in what became an iconic moment on the Phoenix Suns court. Last series in the conference finals would become an iconic moment for the Bucks in an away game. I'm going to try to again go through this little moment here, this iconic moment, but I will leave it down below if you want to check it out in real time. Um, this is what game is this? This is game. Oh, Game 5. Yeah, Game 5. This is Game 5. Yeah, Game 5. In Game 5, with 20 seconds left, Devin Booker drives into traffic with Giannis and PJ Tucker draped on him. He tries to pivot near the elbow, near the nail. Um, but Drew Holiday comes from behind as Devin Booker is turning and steals the ball from him, running up the court with one, running up the court up 1 point. So the Bucks are up 1 point. Giannis joins the fast break up the court. It's a 2-on-1. Drew Holiday, Giannis, both on either side. Chris Paul is backpedaling. Chris Paul is like 6'3". He's nowhere near the height of Giannis. Drew Holiday throws it up with 14 seconds left for Giannis to throw it down, and it only took 6 seconds for the Bucks to change the series, and that game ended 123, 119. Bucks win. They would go home for Game 6, and in Game 6, the Suns would put up a fight one more time, but it wasn't enough. Giannis had 50 and was the leading scorer for the game. The Suns, the Giannis had 50, and the leading scorer for the Suns was Paul with 26. It simply was not enough this was one of the few times I vividly remember Devin Booker not showing up. I always think of Devin Booker showing up in big games. This is one of the big times where he didn't show up. Um, Only having 19, it was a triumph for the Bucks and Giannis winning the chip for the first time in a long time for the Bucks. But for the Suns, it was one of the many chances to get to the finals. Right? It was one of the. It was just one of the first times they would be back to the finals. Right? They had a good team, you know, and they would have another shot at it. Right? Question mark. Paul would be rewarded for his contributions this past year in the offseason with a 4 year, $120 million contract in August of 2021. They had missed the playoffs the season before, like we had talked about, and they had taken a huge leap to make it all the way to the finals. Um, I want to take a break here and circle back again to um, Devin Booker. Just a little more about him and his time in Phoenix and personally, just talking about him personally. Again, they had the finals lost in 2020 2021. While in FIBA play and Olympic play in the FIBA games, I guess the Olympic games, not the Olympic games, just one of the qualifiers. He is a sturdy backbone to two gold medal teams, taking a smaller role so he can so the team can benefit. Only amassing 126 points total over the last two international um, series he's played, along with 31 assists total and 35 rebounds total. His willingness to take a smaller role on the world's biggest stage is welcomed. His time with Team USA has made him a better leader and better defender, all qualities needed to be the face of a team. Just wanted to mention that a little bit here. That Devin has had some other successes that weren't related directly to the Phoenix Suns. Um, I I think it's also time that we talk about some other stuff that took place during the 2020-2022 season. All right, so this is where it starts to get messy. I had to take a pause there. I apologize. This is where it gets messy. This is where the lines start to blur for everybody, even me personally. Some of these years sort of blend together, but I'm going to try to walk you all through it. If you've watched this far already, please consider subscribing, like the video, and maybe share it. I don't know. Engage with the channel. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you. Now, back from my intermission here. This is where it starts to get a little confusing. So stay with me, or just stay with me. I promise it's going to pay off. Um, there's a little spoiler in here, but there's a little spoiler, a little Easter egg in all of these sections. So this section is called Kevin Durant in Phoenix, more bad than good. And the last section was called The Vet and the Core Finally Make the Finals. I just want to make that clear where we are in these sections. Um, and then we have some other stuff in these 2020-2022 years as well. But I'm going to read this verbatim and we're going to get through it. The 2020-21 season was a lost season. Lots of off the court ownership drama and some injuries plagued the team, along with infighting between coaches and between the coach, the head coach, and some players. They ended the season 64-18, and they were promptly bounced by the Mavs in 7 games in the semis. That series included the start of the Devin Booker Luka Doncic beef. Two of my favorite players. I remember watching that. I was like, oh, I don't know who to root for. I guess Luka's right, but Devin Booker's won't back down. Like, I had such a hard time with this beef, um, but that was not the that was not the only beef. Coach Williams had benched Aiton in Game 7, while the two downplayed the on the court argument as emotional moments or part of the family dynamic. external reporting and subsequent analysis suggested Williams preferred Ayton to be traded after his lack of impact against the Mavs and his lax attitude all year. Ayton later stated, um, way I wouldn't say way after, maybe a couple months after this whole thing, that um, obviously when they got back to training camp, that they had not talked the entire summer. That after they got bounced, they did not talk that whole summer. Um, that same summer, the Suns had another beast to conquer to try to get Ayton to sign a contract after showing poor attitude and work ethic. Phoenix on July 2022 extended the qualifying offer to Ayton a $16 million 1 year extension. He would become a free agent the next year. But Ayton and his team on July 2022 agreed to a 4 year, $132 million maximum offer sheet with the Indiana Pacers, the highest in NBA history at the time. The Phoenix Suns had 48 hours to match the offer. And just 4 days later, July 18th, 2022, during the 2022 offseason, he signed a 4 year, $132 million deal with the Phoenix Suns. They had matched it. He was heading back to Phoenix. I remember this at the time. Um, DeAndre really wanted to go to the Pacers. Like, he was dead set on going to the Pacers, and he wanted the Suns to let him go, and the Suns weren't going to let him go for nothing. That was the NBA at the time, and still is, where you have to just resign the guy and just trade him afterwards. Because even if he is upset with his not his deal, he's locked up, he has his money, but if he's still upset with the team, the team rather have control over the player to get assets for him back. Um, Reports later emerged that Williams didn't like coaching Ayton and had preferred him to be traded, potentially for Miles Turner. That deal never materialized, but it was a hope of Coach Monty Williams at the time. And Ayton could not be traded after signing the max extension, so that was dead in the water. And this is where we get into sort of the off the court stuff with the Phoenix Suns in the 2022-2023 season. So we've gone through a couple of seasons here rather quickly. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So 2019-2020, the team with the future, finally. Um, that is that year that we talked about. In the 2020 offseason, um, they got Chris Paul, and then the vet and the core make the finals in the 2020-2021 season. And now we are in the 2020-2022 season, heading into the 2020-2023 season. Just so we're all on the same timeline here. So we're going to talk about this stuff. And if I mispronounce the years or anything, be rested assured. Again, all my details are below for everything I reference here. So, um, yes. Let's circle back to one more character. We have one more character and one more to introduce, but we will talk about that when we get there. This is the fall of 2022, um, when I alluded to ownership issues and all that stuff. In the fall of 2022, Robert Sarver, then governor of the Phoenix Suns and the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury, had allegations surface of a toxic work environment, including instances of racism, misogyny, and bullying. The NBA, of course, launched an investigation into the matter and found that Sarver engaged in egregious misconduct, including using insensitive language on 5 occasions that could be verified. So they could verify 5 of them. There could have been 5 more of them. That's all I could find. Um, and he had many non-work related comments to female and male employees. I don't know what that means. I can use my imagination, and you guys can too, and what that means. But I guess he wasn't just talking about like tennis or something with the guys and girls in the front office or the Phoenix Suns office. He was doing something else. Um, as a result of this, the NBA confirmed the results of their investigation on September 2022. Sarver received a 1 year suspension from the Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Mercury organization, and a record-setting $10 million fine. Um, that was not enough. The outcry against Sarver's behavior persisted, so everybody did not think the punishment fit the crime. They wanted more, um, and the NBA had to respond. So they sent him away from the sport entirely. Um, that would not be said publicly, but on well, let me backtrack here. They literally just sent him away. They sent him away from the sport entirely. Well, they people wanted him sent away from the sport entirely. And I think from the punishment from the NBA and the outcry from the fans, it exploded. He really didn't feel comfortable. Well, I shouldn't say the person that's making other people uncomfortable say he's uncomfortable. He felt the pressure, is what I'm getting at here. I used the wrong words there. I apologize. And then on September 21st, 2022, he announced he was selling the Suns and the Mercury, stating that the focus on his actions overshadowed the team and the community he loved, which I, I is very like a politically correct way to say, hey, I messed up. I'm taking all the heat for this. I don't want it to affect the Suns because he owned the Suns for a long time. It wasn't like he was in and out. He owned the Suns for a very long time. Like I said, what did I say? He owned it since yeah, almost 20 years. He owned the team for almost 20 years, so he loved the team. Um, I will say that, but I want to. Where do you want to go from here? We have so little left here, but I want to make sure I get it right here. Um, Okay, let's continue with the ownership stuff. I made up my mind. I was looking through it. I made up my mind. Let's continue with the ownership stuff, and then we will circle back to the actual on the court stuff for the Phoenix Suns. Um, so we left off. The owner is still Robert Sarver. He is selling the team. Um, Introducing Matt Ishbia, the savior, or just another billionaire playing with his toys. Um, I want to talk about Matt a little bit. He is a billionaire, so everything I say about him is my opinion. This is not fact. I don't want to get in trouble with a freaking billionaire. Um, but enter Matt. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He played basketball as a walk-on at Michigan State from 1999 to 2002 and was a member of the team that won the national championship in 2000. So he obviously had a love for basketball. He was the normal Nepo baby CEO. He led his father's company to becoming one of the leading wholesale mortgage leaders in the USA in 2019. Ishbia published his debut book, Running the Corporate Offense Lessons in Effective Leadership from the Bench to the Boardroom. Then, just 2 years later, in 2021, he became a billionaire. I repeat, he became a billionaire. After his company went public, he also said his company would no longer do any brokering or business. His company would no longer do business with or geez, I can't even say this part. Would no longer do business with any broker doing business with competitors like Rocket Mortgage, Fairway Independent Mortgage, leading to the leading to a lawsuit that that this section will be important in a minute. That same year, in 2021, he would buy a small stake in the Chicago White Sox. Not long after, his name would come into the conversations in the Phoenix Suns bidding. After a few months, the sale would be finalized in December of 2022, with Matt Ishbia becoming the new owner of the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. This still having to be approved by the owners, but in February of 2023, the NBA Board of Governors would approve the final sale between Sarver and Ishbia. He would become the owner of the Phoenix Suns and the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury. Um, he they would approve Matt. Yeah. The NBA announced on Monday, night that Ishbia was approved as the Suns' new governor by a vote of 29 to 0. 29 to 0 votes. League sources said the Cleveland Cavaliers abstain from the vote. The Cavaliers are owned by Dan Gilbert, who runs Rocket Mortgage. What a funny coincidence, huh? Ishbia owns United Wholesale Mortgage. Two companies are considered the two top largest mortgage lenders in America and have a fierce rivalry. Matt said in his press conference when he was granted ownership of the team, he said, "This is a culmination of a lifelong dream. I've loved the game of basketball deeply, but it's so much more than that for me," Ishbia said in a statement issued by the Suns on Tuesday. "Throughout my life, basketball has given me a second family, an education, and so much joy. I am honored to be the steward of the community's franchise in the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. I am totally committed to building an incredible organization on and off the court." And he definitely tried to build a team, a good team on and off the court. um, let's get into this section here. The start, the new season started. We already talked about the sale of the in between in this season 2022-2023. This by no means was the season the Suns wanted, but it did have some rewards. The new owner took control of the team, and he wanted to make some small changes. At the time, you guys might remember Kevin Durant was on the market and was unhappy with the experiment in Brooklyn. Just days before, on February 6th, Kyrie was traded to the Mavs. The he was also a net on the Nets with Kevin Durant. That's a mouthful right there. This opened the door once again for Kevin Durant's services to be available. And on February 9th, 2023, he was traded to the Phoenix Suns from Brooklyn as a part of a four-deal trade. Kevin Durant has been involved in so many like mega deal, four-team, five-team, six-team trades. There's gonna be another one here, spoiler, but I forgot how many big deals Kevin Durant has been a part of. Um, there's some names in here that and some picks. There's George Hill was traded. Oh well, George Hill was traded along with a 2025 second round pick, 2024 second round pick, 2023 second round pick, and Serge Ibaka and Jordan Nara to Indiana. Milwaukee traded a bunch of picks. Um, that were split between the Nets and Phoenix for Jay Crowder. Um, the Nets got Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges, so those guys exit the picture. Um, the Brooklyn Nets traded cash to Indiana. Brooklyn traded Jay Crowder to Milwaukee. Brooklyn Nets traded TJ Warren back to Phoenix after TJ Warren had gone on a little bit of a journey. He's back in Phoenix now. A very complex trade to get Kevin Durant to Phoenix. This would mark the end of an era and the start of a new one. The team's big names were now Booker, KD, Paul, and Ayton. Looked at as a decent team on paper, the roster needed some filling out considering this was a midseason trade. This midseason was crazy. They got a new owner. They traded for Kevin Durant. You could possibly say it was new owner syndrome. Matt Ishbia wanted a big name there, so they went and got Kevin Durant. We'll get to that in a minute. But they could retool in the offseason. For now, the team, after the trade, finished 54-37. The new core only played 8 games together and eventually lost to the future this season NBA champions Denver Nuggets. They lost 2 games to four. The Nuggets won 4 games. The Suns only won two. They would turn the next few seasons into win now, and we would all watch as it did not. As I had said previously, a lot of these years blend together, and I'm doing my best to sort of part the lines between what's happened in one year and what's happened in next year. We bounced around a little bit, but I hope you guys are enjoying. This next section is called Losing Identity and Heart. Um, it's the 2023 offseason. Paul and Ian are both gone for different reasons. In this offseason, the front office and new owner would make the most shocking moves yet. First, by firing Monty in May, for reasons that could only be described or only summed up as beefing with a star player in Ayan and losing some of the locker room. The next domino to fall was on September 2023. 27th, Ayton was traded to Portland from Phoenix as a part of a three-team trade. Milwaukee traded Grayson Allen to Phoenix. Milwaukee traded Drew Holiday and a 2029 first round pick and a 2028 first round pick and a 2030 first round pick to Portland, along with Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday would be rerouted to Boston. Phoenix would trade Tumani Kamara to Portland. Portland would trade Damian Lillard to Milwaukee. Portland would trade Yusef Nurkic, Nasir Little, Keon Johnson to Phoenix. I forgot how big of a trade this was. The Phoenix Suns have been involved in some mega trades that have like kind of altered NBA history almost because Drew Holiday went to Boston. Oh well, he got traded from Milwaukee to Portland because of the Ayton trade, and then Drew Holiday gets traded to Boston, and then they win the championship a few years later. Crazy NBA history, like buzz, or like look back. Um, this was a huge deal that got rid of a disgruntled big man in Ayton and gave the Suns help at the guard spot and depth at the center position. Phoenix was not done yet, as on June 18th. Oh no, this is June, July, no June, June 18th. Yeah, this is June. Yeah, this is June. Yeah, because June 18th, 2023. They traded Chris Paul. He was traded to the Washington Wizards from Phoenix with Landry Shamet, along with 6 second-round picks and 6 second-round picks for the next 5 years. So over the next 5 years, the Phoenix Suns gave up 6 of their second-round picks. But on top of that, a 2024 first-round pick, right swap with Washington, a 2026 swap again, first-round pick, a 2028 first-round pick swap with the Washington Wizards, and another one in 2030. Jeez. Wow. I'm out of breath just reading that. And $3 million, $3.5 million, and the trade was for Bradley Beal. Jordan Goodwin, Isaiah Todd, Paul would be sent to Phoenix, will be sent to Golden State later on in the same offseason. That's an important. This is unimportant. That's unimportant for this story. I just want to make that clear where Chris Paul ended up after all this. Um, this was the play to get rid of Aiden and the aging star in Chris Paul. Phoenix now had Grayson Allen and Yusef Nurkic from the Ayton deal, along with Bradley Beal and some other parts from the Paul deal. They were locked and loaded with a new big three for the foreseeable future. Beal had just signed a 5-year, $251 million maximum extension contract with Washington. He is now in Phoenix in July. No, that was on July 6th, 2022. So again, Bradley Beal was locked up. That same year, Devin Booker signed a 4-year, $220 million deal, designated player extension with Phoenix. So 2022, Beal and Booker are on the same trajectory now. They're both on the same team. They're both locked up. And Kevin Durant still had 2 years left on his deal from his time in Phoenix. The immediate future was set. Moving on. Um, desperation and disappointment. um, like I said, these seasons are melded together in some people's mind, and especially in mine. But to me, and a lot of a lot of other people, this season, these seasons coming up, were marred by two underwhelming and disappointing seasons under two different coaches. They finished. Well, let me backtrack here for a minute. We have the big three: Booker, Beal, and Kevin Durant now. In 2023, 24, they finished the season 49-33, finishing sixth in the Western Conference. They would lose in the Western Conference first round versus Minnesota. They got swept. Not a good look for their first go around as a core. And then in 2024, 2025, they finished 36 and 46, finishing 11th in the Western Conference, missing the playoffs entirely. Um, just as a little preemptive appetizer to what we're going to talk about here. Um, the 2023-2024 season was seen as a fluke for the team. They had just gotten together. They needed more time, but in desperate need of more bench help. And that was exactly the problem, though. They had all their money tied up in the big three and they couldn't get any more help. In 2024, 2025, it was a similar story, but worse. They tried to patch things together once more by adding Tyus Jones, who was a good backup point guard, Damian Lee, who was a sharpshooter, Cody Martin, who is not as good as his brother Caleb Martin, but still a switchy 3-and-D wing, Nick Richards to bring up the center spot, and Mason Plumlee to bring up the center spot as well um, in the offseason. And yeah, yeah, I'm just blown away. We're getting towards the end here. We're wrapping it up here. Wrapping it up. um, like I said, they tried to patch things together. Um, and during the season, it wasn't enough, and the franchise had their hands tied. This the team this year looked especially dejected. The body language is terrible. Sans a few good games from Kevin Durant and some fourth quarter rallies from the team. This group was done mentally. Coach Mike Budenholzer was the coach now. He had benched Bradley Beal multiple times in an attempt to try anything, even pleading with Bradley Beal in a meeting to play more like Drew Holiday. In a report by Shams Charania of ESPN, it was reported that Budenholzer did not have a good relationship with some of his players. Ian, who watched, or anyone who watched the Suns, could see that as a team, they played lethargically on both sides of the ball. Beal was one of the players who did not connect with Coach Mike Budenholzer. In an additional report, Chris Haynes reported that, or ESPN or NBA insider Chris Haynes reported that Bradley Beal was upset with Budenholzer because he told him to be more like Drew Holiday. Um, Drew Holiday, for those who do not know, um, was coached by Mike Budenholzer on the Bucks, who won the 2021-2021 championships against the Suns in 6 games. Holiday won his second title with Boston last year against the Dallas Mavericks in 23-24. So Coach Mike Budenholzer telling Bradley Beal, who's been a basically a go-to bucket everywhere else he's been, to change his game this late in his career. Bradley Beal was like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want to do that. I don't want to play like NBA champion defensive stalwart Drew Holiday. That's just not me." And Mike Budenholzer got in trouble for that. Beal was reluctant to change the way he played. While others went through the motions, this doomed the team entirely. Booker played 70 plus games. KD played 60 plus games. Bradley Beal played 60 plus games. This era was over, and KD on the last year of his deal was going to get, and Kevin Durant on the last year of his deal this offseason, the 2025 offseason, this past one, was going to be very interesting. Um, I do want to talk about one bright spot that happened this past season for Devin Booker. The last thing I'll talk about Devin Booker before we move on here. This past season, Devin's star burned brighter than ever before when on February 3rd in Portland versus the Blazers, he became the Suns' all-time leading scorer, passing Walter Davis's 15,666 100 points. Um, Devin had only played in 642 games to catch Davis. Um, Devin, 28 years old now, is at 16,452 points, joining the likes of Giannis, 20,000 points, Damian Lillard, 19,000 points, Stephen Curry, 25,000 points, as players who hold the title while still being on the team that drafted them. Well, also he joined the list of active players who still hold franchise records in points on but now are on different teams. He joins the likes of DeMar DeRozan, who is still playing, LeBron James, who is still playing. He holds the record for the Cavs, DeMar DeRozan for the Raptors, Brooke Lopez for the Nets, Russell Westbrook for the Oklahoma City Thunder, Anthony Davis for the New Orleans Pelicans, Mike Conley for the Memphis Grizzlies. All those guys, um, Giannis, Dame, Curry, DeRozan, James, Lopez, Russell, Anthony Davis, Mike Conley are all the all-time leading scorers for their respective franchises, which is crazy when I started looking up the stats. Some other notable names that have recently retired. Um, Kemba Walker is the all-time leading scorer for the Hornets. He's now retired. Tim Duncan, all-time leading scorer for the San Antonio Spurs. Um, Kobe Bryant, all-time leading scorer for the Los Angeles Lakers. Kevin Garnett, the Wolves, and Dirk Nowitzki, the Mavs. So Devin Booker is in rare air after this season that I just mentioned. um, I do also want to tag this in here right at the end as we start talking about the real downfall of this team. Um, I want to talk about how many coaches Devin Booker has and how many coaches the Suns have gone through in the Devin Booker era. Jeff Hornacek, um, 3.5 seasons with the Phoenix Suns, only 213 games and 1 season with Devin Booker. Earl Watson, 2.5 seasons and 118 games. Jay Triano, interim head coach, 79 games. Igor Koskokov, 1 season, 82 games. Monty Williams, 4 full seasons, 309 games. Frank Vogel, 1 season, um, 82 games. He was the predecessor to Mike Budenholzer, who only had 1 season, 82 games. So the Phoenix Suns have had a lot of coaches. I've sort of not talked about them here and there because, again, there are so many characters in this already. But I did want to mention the amount of coaches and the abundance of coaches that they've had. And we'll talk about another one here in a minute. Um, we're heading down the the back line here, the bottom back nine um, here. Just bad and the future. I believe this is the last section. Again, guys, if you've watched this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Um, Wrapping up here, we need to talk about what really made me want to make this video. A big secret that wasn't really a big secret. Kevin Durant wasn't happy with the Suns. The Suns tried to trade him during this past season. Talking current day, this past season. Back to Golden State. The bones of the trade was Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, Bradley Beal to Miami, and Kevin Durant to Golden State. This trade was declined by Kevin Durant and his team, his management team, after they found out about it. So instead, they had to wait. They they had the season. Instead, they had to wait the season. They had the summer and they had just a few months to go. Um, on July 6th, 2025, Kevin Durant was traded to the Houston Rockets and will become a mega deal. Like I alluded to, the mega deal that he was involved in earlier. This one's even crazier. This is a 7-team trade. I'm not going to go through all the details because this video is already long as heck. But some notable names. Clint Capella was involved in this trade, going to Houston. Um, Golden State got uh, Kobe Barea. Golden State traded Kobe Barea to Phoenix. Houston traded. Houston traded $85 million, a 2031 second round pick, David Roddy, to Atlanta. Houston traded some role players to Golden State. Houston traded a 2026 second round pick, Jalen Green, Jalen Brooks, and Kamal Malawat from this past draft to Phoenix. Houston traded a 2026 second round pick and 2030 to Brooklyn. Los Angeles traded some role player and $3 million to Minnesota. Minnesota traded Rasheer Fleming to Phoenix. Phoenix traded Alex Tooney to Golden State, and Phoenix traded a 2026 second round pick, a 2030 second round pick to Minnesota. Brooklyn traded Abdul Thero to Los Angeles. After this whole trade, some of the players in this trade would be waived or traded again. Some of the players would be on two-way deals from their summer league performances. But for this video, the Suns got Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Kamal Malawach, and the Rockets got Kevin Durant, a Hall of Famer. The smaller transaction just happened days later when Bradley Beal got waived by the Phoenix Suns via buyout and stretch provision. This was small news in compared to the Kevin Durant trade, but Bradley Beal, the bank robber, as he was known by Phoenix Suns fans, was gone. The Suns will have to pay him for a heaping load of money over the next 5 years. Um, but he was finally gone. He would go on to become a Clipper. And just to clean the slate entirely, they also fired Mike Budenholzer, again, who I listed only coached one season for him. Um, and now the new era could begin. And just to recap, the Suns now for the 2025-2026 season, this upcoming season, they still have Booker. On July 10th, 2025, he signed a 2-year, $133 million maximum extension with the Suns, so he's there for the long haul. They also, again, got Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks. Just to run through some of my thoughts on the current team. Kamal Malawach is someone I'm very interested in, especially on this team. He was drafted by the Rockets, traded to the Suns on draft night. In accordance with this trade that went through, it took like 2 weeks for this trade to get approved, so they had a lot of time. But I'm very high on Kamal Malawach. At Duke, he was really good. Um, Another guy who I really like on this team, especially helping Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks, a steady wing. He works well with Booker. Defensively, offensively, I think it's a good pairing. I would rather see that in the backcourt. I would rather see Booker and Dylan Brooks in the backcourt as a big backcourt. Both are really good defensively. Dylan Brooks is a spot up, can make his own shot sometimes. Devin Booker obviously needs to have the ball in his hand all the time. But the biggest question for me is Jalen Green. If you ask some people, they'll tell you Jalen Green has all-star potential. I don't think so, and I don't think him/Devin Booker in the backcourt will work. They play too much alike. Jalen Green, to me, essentially is a poor man's Devin Booker. It might work for a season or two, but for the Suns, they're in a weird spot. They also brought in a new coach, Jordan Ott, a rookie head coach with lots of bench experience. Ott is a veteran basketball coach with nearly 2 decades of experience, 12 years in the NBA. He spent the 2024-2025 season as an assistant coach with the Cleveland Cavaliers under Coach of the Year Kenny Atkinson, where he helped the team to 64-18 record in the Eastern Conference and the number one seed. The Cleveland Cavaliers led the league in offensive rating, scoring 121 points per 100 possessions, and the second highest league rating in NBA history, with Ott on the bench with Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland, just to make that clear. Also worked closely with Cleveland Cavaliers forward Evan Mobley, who I'm very high on, during his time in Cleveland, helping Mobley earn Defensive of the Year honors and first career All NBA selections. Matt Ishbia said about Jordan Ott, Jordan embodies the culture and excellence and accountability we are trying to prioritize. He continued, he is young, hungry, and is ready to be an NBA head coach. His track record of developing players, fostering chemistry, and his understanding of the game at the high level are essential skills of how we are building for the future. This time, end quote. This time, Booker did have a lot of say in his coach, unlike the past where they just brought in coaches. This time, Booker had a huge say. He gave the okay, which does mean something, but to me personally, it feels like the same roller coaster that never ends, and Devin Booker is still on it. Devin is 28 now, at the peak of his powers. He is gone from being on a bad team to mediocre team again. I have very little faith at this combination of players, but I'm open to being surprised. Lastly, here, the last thing I've heard from the Suns and Matt Ishbia this offseason um, was Matt on X/Twitter. He said, I'm not worried about what so called experts think. They had us as title contenders the past 2 years. They were wrong then. We're focused on making our fans proud and by playing great as a team and building a brand of basketball that is tough and gritty, he said in a response to a preseason prediction by experts on Twitter. And that is it, guys. An hour and 30 minutes in. That was it. That was the whole timeline. I hope I did a good enough job for you guys. I worked so hard on this. I love this series so much. It is such a pain in the butt to do, this Turmoil series, but that was the rising and setting Suns. How the Phoenix Suns have failed Devin Booker. A culmination of many years of failure and high moments and low moments and moments. Like I said, there were times and there were literally 6 to 30 seconds changed the whole series, and the Phoenix Suns got the bad end of it. Um, I did want to say something here at the end, but I think I said everything in this video. Um, Again, I'm a huge Devin Booker fan. I hope this works out for him. I think he deserves to be a Phoenix Sun for life, but I think if he wants to be there, he'll be there. I don't think they'll ever trade him. I think he wants to be like his idol Kobe Bryant and be a one team guy. But in this NBA, it's so hard to do that. You have guys like Steph Curry, Giannis, Booker, who, when you are loyal, the team does go through these really bad years. And I think next year is going to be a really bad year. I am going to talk about the Suns in my preseason preview for the 25-26 season here, coming up in the next couple weeks. But we'll leave that for then. I'm going to leave all my links um, in the comments. I have a bunch of links here um, from Wikipedia, ESPN, Reddit, Basketball Reference, NBADraft.net, Spot Track. Uh, I'm going to link the Valley Oop on YouTube down below. I'm going to link the Drew Holiday Giannis Alley down below. I'm going to leave the Yahoo Sports article down below and everything so you guys have um, access to it, so you know what I'm talking about if you need any more um, um, what do you call it, context for the stuff I talked about. um, Again, thank you guys so much. It's been a little rocky here. The views have been up and down, but I hope you guys enjoy this video. Even if 1 or 2 or 3 people watch this video all the way through or just a part of it, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is going to be my last NBA thing for a little bit, and then we'll move on to WNBA stuff. We're in the playoffs. Then we move into preseason predictions because the NBA season is going to creep up on us so quick. But thank you guys again so much. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.